Want to win the inventory game? With Kelley Blue Book Instant Cash Offer, you can lock in trade-ins before your competitors even blink. Faster deals, better margins, lock in and load up today at b2b.kbb.com.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Thursday, October 9th, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Nashville, Tennessee. Today on the show, GM slips major new terms into supplier contracts. Ford's F-150 Lightning plant will go idle in the wake of an aluminum plant fire. And Rivian's CEO says automakers will need software-defined architectures to survive in 10 years. Plus, the Trump administration looks like it's moving toward new tariffs on robotics and industrial machinery. AlixPartners Managing Director Neil Ganguly joins the show to talk about what that would mean for the auto industry.
As we stand today in the United States, robotics and industrial automation manufacturing, we cannot fulfill the capacity, the demand that is needed in the United States. We can only fulfill about 75 to 80% of the capacity.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. General Motors is making a major change to its purchase agreements. It's joining its Detroit 3 competitors in trying to tighten supply contracts for more operational flexibility as rising costs weigh on the industry. According to an analysis by our sibling publication, Crain's Detroit Business, and legal experts, GM has inserted a new clause into its purchase orders in recent weeks, giving GM the ability to extend contracts indefinitely and dictate pricing adjustments. The extension clause breaks with GM's traditional fixed-term contracts, which gives suppliers clarity on program end dates, better allowing them to plan their business as well as leverage for better pricing. We'll have more on this story in a minute with Crain's Detroit business reporter Kurt Nagel. Ford is pausing production next week of the F-150 Lightning electric pickup in Dearborn, Michigan. That's after a fire in New York State at a Novelis aluminum plant that supplies the automaker. A memo shared with workers at the plant, viewed by Reuters, says the Rouge Electric Vehicle Center will be off next week. Ford declined to provide specifics on any production adjustments. And Rivian's CEO, RJ Scaringe, says he believes software-defined vehicles will be critical for automakers' survival in a decade's time. He says legacy automakers have depended on inefficient and inflexible technology architectures in their vehicles for decades, which will increasingly become a problem in the coming years.
I would say emphatically that it's inconceivable to me that a car company can exist and maintain market share by 2035 and not have a software-defined architecture.
Scaringe was speaking during a fireside chat with the Automotive Press Association at Rivian's offices near Detroit. He touted Rivian's technology architecture in the upcoming R2 model slated to come out in the first half of 2026. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. Joining me now from our offices in Detroit is Kurt Nagel of our sibling publication, Crain's Detroit Business, who broke the story about GM's new supplier terms. Kurt, welcome to Daily Drive.
Thank you for having me.
So, Kurt, what do these new terms mean for GM suppliers from a practical and financial perspective?
I think what it means is just more uncertainty for suppliers. There's always been this push-pull relationship between the OEMs and the suppliers. Automakers want more flexibility within their operations. Suppliers need certainty so that they don't get hosed on investment and capital equipment decisions and the like. And what these terms are seeking to do is give more leverage, more flexibility to GM, and as a result, less clarity, certainty, and leverage for suppliers.
And Kurt, why did GM do this now?
So GM did not indicate exactly why, but there's some pretty obvious clues. The automaker is facing $4 to $5 billion of tariff costs this year. At the same time, they are overhauling their supply chain with a strong emphasis on resilience and onshoring and the like, and that costs a lot of money. Not to mention, all these EV cancellations. GM invested very heavily in EVs, asked their suppliers to do the same. left a lot of stranded capital, a lot of sunk investments, lack of ROI for suppliers, and now suppliers are seeking some help from GM. So if I had to guess, I would say that GM is seeking to maybe put their foot down a little bit and tell suppliers, hey, we're going to help you, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we protect our business, and tightening up those legal terms is a practical way to do that.
Good stuff. Kurt, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks again for having me.
Coming up, AlixPartners Managing Director Neil Ganguly joins the show to talk about what new tariffs on robotics would mean for automakers and suppliers. That's next on Daily Drive.
Automotive News Shift podcast brings you the latest on automotive technology, trends, and transformation. I'm Hannah Lutz.
And I'm Molly Boygon. We're the new co-hosts of Shift, and we're excited to bring you new conversations with experts and industry insiders like this one with Larry Dominique, president of LD Management Consulting.
I do believe the legacy OEMs are falling into a trap. They've got to find a way to, in some ways, build a new airplane while they're still in flight.
Catch Shift, available every Sunday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Inventory is tight, competition is fierce, but Kelley Blue Book Instant Cash Offer gives you the edge. With direct access to consumer trade-ins, you can lock in more of the used inventory you need and load up your lot. Dealers using Instant Cash Offer cut cost to market by 3.7% and close deals faster with new tools like counteroffer. That means more margin, less hassle. Whether you're looking to boost your used car pipeline or streamline your acquisition strategy, it's time to lock in and load up. Visit b2b.kbb.com to request your demo and see how Kelley Blue Book can help you win more deals more often.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. The U.S. Department of Commerce is setting the stage for potential robotics and industrial machinery tariffs. While tariffs are not guaranteed, duties on industrial machinery and robotics would create another cost for automakers and suppliers already dealing with tariffs on vehicles, parts, steel, and aluminum. Neil Ganguly is Managing Director of AlixPartners. He spoke with our own Molly Boygon about the possibility of robotics tariffs and what they would mean for the industry.
Neil Ganguly, partner and managing director at AlixPartners, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So for someone who has not been following this latest development, what exactly did the government release on Friday, and what did it say?
It's been in the works for a little while. While the announcement is recent, it's been in the works for a little while, and the reason I say that is because the Section 232 tariffs on the metal, steel, and aluminum already existed, and when this was announced earlier this year, I think in February or March or that time frame, it was already mentioned that there would be more derivative products that would be under the tariff regime at some point in time during the year. And that's what we're seeing is incrementally sort of, that being acted upon. And the robotics and the industrial equipment announcement that just came out with the Federal Register on Friday is just a continuation of that regime announcement earlier this year.
Right. So the government is saying it's going to investigate the possibility of imposing Section 232 tariffs, which are tied to national security, on robotics and industrials. And that is a derivative product of steel and aluminum, as you said.
Right. And whether it's a derivative or not, it's now under investigation to put it in the Section 232. Now, the closest link we have but it's got a lot of semiconductor in it. It's got a lot of copper in it. As you know, semiconductors and copper and other, commodities that have also been considered under Section 232. So it's under the overall umbrella of Section 232 tariffs. Now, what rate applies and how it's considered, right, will depend, remains to be seen. But it's a matter of, how these products are perceived, where they come from, and what rate is applied, if it is.
And the government is seeking more information about the nation's reliance on imported robotics and industrial manufacturing products. What do you expect the government will find in terms of where different manufacturing industries are getting this type of equipment?
Yeah, so in terms of sticking to robotics and industrial automation, I think that's kind of what we're talking about. That space in the United States in 2024, there was about 750 million of robotics just robotics imported, right? This does not include industrial equipment and machinery and other things that may or may not qualify under this particular Federal Register claim. But of that 750 million of robotics that were imported, about 40% went to the automotive industry, right? So you're talking on an annual basis, maybe just taking 2024 as a data point, about 300 million of that came in, right? And the impact of that is that when a new program is announced or launched, and when plants are upgraded in the automotive suppliers and OEMs and ecosystems, right? These are needed in terms of the automation that is put in the plant. We always know that there are labor shortages that the industry is already dealing with. These obviously can go a long way in terms of alleviating that shortage and bringing in production efficiencies to the automotive ecosystem. And therefore, it is an important component of production, more and more production being ensured, right? And therefore, what we're going to look at potentially is, hey, what is the impact of this in terms of costs, in terms of the feasibility to have U.S. manufacturing come up at the same time, and so on and so forth, right? Today, as we stand today in the United States, robotics and industrial automation manufacturing, we cannot fulfill the capacity, the demand that is needed in the United States. We can only fulfill about 75 to 80% of the capacity.
And so what countries are we relying on to manufacture the equipment to make up that shortfall in our domestic manufacturing capacity?
The largest centers of these, of course, China ranks number one, 10 to 1 above the United States in terms of robotics installations. Germany has a lot of robotics and industrial automation manufacturing. South Korea is a significant hub driven by some of the companies out there. And then from the global players who have put in capacity in North America, a lot of them have gone to Mexico, which is another place. Now, the United States, I don't know exactly where, but it is among the top 10 or so, but these are the 4 or 5 top ones.
And I think that's an interesting spread of countries that you just mentioned, because it's a much more complex picture diplomatically. As you say, there is reliance on China, which the administration has indicated it does not have a problem with tariffing, pretty intensely. But in terms of Europe and South Korea, those are regions or countries that the United States has historically had a much friendlier trading relationship with. Do you think that type of dynamic impacts the likelihood that the government is actually going to impose these tariffs on the importers of robotics and industrial manufacturing equipment?
It'd be hard to speculate whether the government will or will not, right? I think the question becomes, for the industry, for the automotive industry, and for the industrial players to say, hey, am I planning for the right set of scenarios to evaluate to evolve, right? If the tariff is indeed imposed, do I now have the right set of options and choices in my supply chain for industrials and tooling and robotics, or am I dependent on tariff regimes? And the good thing about the announcement coming out before the actual tariffs are levied is there is some time for companies to actually plan and look at the scenarios that that could evolve and how they want to handle or deal with that. So while it's really difficult to say whether it's going to come or not, several have come, several have not. I think the industry needs to be ready, no matter what the outcome is.
And it's interesting that the domestic manufacturers have, as you said, somewhere between or around 70 to 80% capacity to manufacture what's necessary for the country. Is that gap driven by labor shortages? Is that gap driven by a lack of capital? What can you try and explain why, 70 to 80% is the majority. So why is the domestic industry unable to manufacture the full sort of suite of necessities that the nation requires?
Well, they potentially could. The capital hasn't gone in, and the capacity investments haven't gone in to date, possibly because of some of the reasons, as you mentioned, right? Well, it was maybe the technology was already existing in a certain country, one of these, Japan, South Korea, China, Germany, and the company or the set of folks that made the decision to go with that, it was better business case at that point in time. So part of it is historically what decisions have been made, right? Whether you want to tool up and manufacture your own tooling or not. The second factor is technology availability. As we know, robotics itself is a I wouldn't say it's a category, right? It's a product that has electronics, it has metallics, it has advanced materials. So the supply bases related to these components that go into the robotic system that you're going to use and import, right, are based in other countries, right? Maybe the semiconductors, China, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan. There were technologies available there. Germany, as we know, high precision, manufacturers. So for historical reasons, the choices of whether to manufacture or buy have gone one way or the other. But as we stand today, if all the capacity was used, you said about 3/4 of it could be done in-house. Not that it is being done today, but it could be.
And as you said, this is just an investigation. There's no guarantee that the tariffs will be applied. The next step is that there's a 21-day public comment period whereby the government is going to be seeking comment from companies, from industry groups, from other stakeholders. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what types of comments do you expect from the industry? Is this a tariff that would be welcome to encourage that domestic manufacturing that you described, or is the cost impact, going to cause alarm?
2 or 3 points on that, right? One is it is going to be a cost item for folks that are dependent on. It is one more line item that they now need to worry about. In the automotive industry, suppliers and the ecosystem and OEMs need to worry about when they're looking at importing certain products that they want to use, right? In this case, this doesn't happen to go on a vehicle. It goes into their factories, right? Number two, if we want to grow U.S. manufacturing, you're going to need a lot more of this investment, right? So whether it comes from outside or whether it comes from we can build the capacity domestically remains to be seen. But if we want to rebuild and reshore and onshore, this is going to be a very, very important factor. And third, the labor issues that we're facing today aren't going to go away anytime soon. And so it's not that we're going to make choices that are less automated in the factory. We're going to continue to make choices that are more automated. And as a result, we foresee that at least the demand for robotics, for industrial machinery and automation machinery is going to continue to rise. And therefore, the businesses are going to have to, like I said, deal with that. And to your question, the comment period is going to probably, the folks are going to focus on those kinds of issues. How are we going to, address the cost issues? How are we going to address the labor issues? And how are we going to address the access?
Neil Ganguly, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure talking with you.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Before we go, make sure to check out our new downloadable Future Product Pipeline supplement. The guide is an updated compilation of our 10-part series that began July 21st and includes a 7-page timeline listing each brand's plans through 2029. You can find that at autonews.com. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Michael Martinez for his reporting for today's podcast. We also had reporting from Kurt Nagel of our sibling publication, Crane's Detroit Business. You can get the latest news on tariffs, supply chains, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.